Hello, and welcome to the Subvet Podcast, attempting to merge neuroscience with supplements. Please welcome your hosts for this carousel of chaos, Kristen Ramore and Aaron Stewart.
Hello, that fluff.
Exactly. So it's just for that
Wow.
episode. It's kind of fast again. It sounds like something fast. I mean, and the words are going to be that little something confirmed. So for the rest of the podcast, going to episode today is again. He's Murphy Smith.
I'm not even cutting this out.
No, yeah, definitely need to keep that.
Oh God. Well, hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Subvert Podcast. I am Kristen Ramore. I am not having a stroke. Hopefully.
Not yet.
I mean, I might be. You may have just witnessed that.
Had already?
Had. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm.
This as always is Aaron Stewart.
Who's definitely had a stroke. So yeah, definitely stroked out.
Thanks again for joining us, everyone. If we haven't offended everyone.
Yeah,
right
exactly. Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. It's just a matter of time.
Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Whilst we get ourselves together, it's the perfect opportunity to do so.
Well, we make our donation to the stroke fund. It'll be
Exactly. You know you want more of this, right?
Right. So, what were we talking about? Were we talking about strokes today, or?
You'd think so.
Yeah, we've had a pretty stroke-centric episode so far, but I don't think that was the.
No, today we are talking about empathy.
Ooh.
And more specifically, we're talking about new research that links lack of sleep, even a little bit of lack of sleep, to lack of empathy. Mm-hmm. Which I think is going to be a fascinating topic to cover.
Yeah, and like to quote them, sociopathic tendencies, essentially, right? Makes people into, I believe it was enforced sociopaths was the word they...
Yeah, I didn't want to start off with the, terrifying sociopathic message.
And,
everyone's out there like, oh,
we
God,
do lead with the...
I don't sleep enough. Am I a sociopath?
Well, to an extent, yeah.
The answer is yes.
The short answer, yeah. And so yeah. So thanks for joining us on the episode, and very short episode where we had the definitive answer. Yes, you are a sociopath, and get more sleep. That's basically So moving on. But yeah, that was essentially, and so it kind of begs the question in our day and age of just, how much of a push does it take to make people like? Is it just a little? Well,
it is. I mean, arguably, we are treating each other far worse, I think, than at least in like my lifetime. I've never encountered this level of just full-on disdain for your fellow man that seems to be everywhere you look. So it's interesting to think that there could be an actual explanation behind it.
Yeah.
And that explanation is sleep, as it turns out. No one in Western culture anyways, we are just we're bombarded, with blue light all the time. We're watching TV, we're all scrolling on our phones. That has scientifically been proven to mess up our sleep patterns. So we have that. We also have a culture where it's a badge of honor to not need sleep. You hear this all the time, where it's like, I can function on 5 hours. Oh, you get a solid 8 hours? Must be nice. What a luxury, right? Or you're called lazy or whatever it is, you're just not a go-getter like the rest of us that only sleep for 4 or 5 hours.
When they keep bringing up like Einstein, who had little cap naps over the course of a night and didn't really actually sleep apparently.
Oh yeah,
right?
Just was 15-minute cat naps.
Yeah, right. Like, and they keep using that as if that was, but he also died at young, right? Yeah. And I mean, the dude looked like he was, So I mean, there's definitely something to be said for, if you want a longer and healthier life too, right? And everybody's different, so the 7.5 or whatever they say is the average that you're supposed to be getting a night or whatever. It's 1 hour less than apparently can, shut your brain off, or shut the good parts of your brain off.
Well, shut off the part that makes you feel empathy for your fellow man.
Yeah, and that was kind of the findings of it, is the parts of your brain they've kind of identified the empathy parts, right?
Yeah.
And identify that, again, this lack of sleep apparently makes it harder for you to be able to engage that when you're faced with a situation where you would be required to have that bent of empathy, right? Like your neighbor comes to ask you for something, your coworker comes to ask a favor, right? Like that kind of thing, where normally you'd be like, yeah, no problem, right? There are times when apparently just even a lack of sleep will make you just go, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right. And for no reason other than just, right, like just that internal dialogue that we have sometimes gets derailed with,
Yeah.
you know, just this random brain bullshit.
Yeah. And I'm sure like almost everyone out there can probably, have the experience, when you haven't gotten enough sleep and you're more irritable than usual. But what this research was saying was it's kind of just that more underlying, you don't even think about it so much because you feel fine. So you
Right.
think you're functioning and you feel perfectly normal, but it's just this little erosion of your empathy centers that happens, and it's cumulative over time, right? So the more you keep losing out on that little bit of sleep because you feel great,
Yeah.
it's the more this keeps eroding, and then we end up where we're at.
Mm-hmm. But as we talk about a lot here, the awareness of, right? Like if you're not aware that, that's why you had that little rant where you just like, for no reason, my kid came in and said something and I just went, oh, why was I, right? What? And then you spend the next hour just going, why did I do that? What was going on? And you know, if it's just that lack of sleep, now at least you can understand. And now you at least have, you're armed again with a means of hopefully trying to deal with this thing. Right. And we're getting better at, for one, understanding sleep. Again, the brain we haven't figured out. So sleep is also one of those things that we just don't quite grasp what it does, right? Like we're getting better ideas now that we again have brain scans to be able to figure these things out.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those where for years we were just poking metal rods into brains and going, how's that make you feel? And that's literally all we had as far as brain science went,
Yeah.
So this is all still really new for us. And so again, these findings are helping to arm us with hopefully these means of being able to grasp why our brains do these things, right? Because most of it, again, just leads us by the nose, pulling us along, going, okay, this is what we're doing, right? And you just have to kind of go, I guess that's what we're doing, brain, right? Like, it's best, right? You wouldn't lead me astray, right? You wouldn't just bring out random negativity for no fucking reason, right? Right? Yeah, cool. Right? Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Or let alone like lead me astray if I've just not gotten enough sleep last night, right? Like the cat jumped up on the bed one too many times, and now I'm just this sociopathic monster. Like, great, awesome.
It's what the cats have wanted.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they're night. Yeah, absolutely. That does explain a lot of things. Yeah, for sure. But then he gets all confused when I'm mad at him. I don't understand why. You caused this. You think that you would at least be... Anyway. But so like I said, it's hopefully arming us with these means of again understanding that while it's again kind of your fault, right, it's also partly not your fault. And again, without the awareness of these things, it becomes a Dunning-Kruger effect, where if you're ignorant of that effect, you wouldn't even be aware of anything that you were doing wrong. This is just what I've been doing all this time. What do you mean that offends people, and all these people around me have been silently cringing every time I've done this for the past whole life, and nobody's once you didn't say anything to me about thanks, buddy. Right? Like, and hopefully again getting to that point where you're aware of the next time you have that just rising heat inside your chest, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, what was causing that? Oh, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Okay. Right, exactly, right? Or just again, that awareness of hopefully will give you that out, so that you're aware of this is what was causing it. No, I just didn't get enough sleep last night, so I need to just have that.
Well, what I find interesting is like the fact that we exist with this contradictory information, right? Because on the one hand, we do know, everyone knows sleep is important. We all told you need to get enough sleep. It's good, healthy for you, does, repairs your body, all these things. But then we're also being told, work harder, right? Don't get enough sleep. Actually prove to everyone how little sleep you need, and that's what's going to get you ahead in the world. So how can both these things be true at the same time?
When I love this idea that I keep hearing about lately about quiet quitting.
Okay.
You haven't heard about that?
Where you just walk out?
No, it's essentially just being at work and doing literally just the work that they've told you to do, and not doing any of the above and beyond, not doing any of the staying for the extra hours. At 5 o'clock you clock out. You do not do
just
any,
doing what you're being paid
just
for.
doing what we were
What's in your
basically
job
doing
description?
beforehand, and they kept piling extra stuff onto us as if that was a virtue.
Yeah.
And we just kept having to go,
You earned
nom,
this
nom.
extra
Thank you
work.
so much. Oh, nom, nom. Oh boy, I appreciate you trust me so much with this extra work. Nom, nom. And I get to work all weekend for it. Nom, 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 nom. You know, and it's this resetting of boundaries that we've had over the past few years here, where, wait a minute, that wasn't in my best interest because you were just going to fire me as soon as I finished that project and hired someone else for cheaper. Oh, wait a minute. Right? Like, it wasn't anything about me actually being it's just the money with you, and you just needed to, okay.
Or when you say no to, I don't want to do extra work unless you pay me accordingly for it, and then you're the one that ends up getting fired. Yeah, you're not a team player.
Well, and you know, I'm having an argument with the place I'm working with right now because they don't want me to talk to coworkers about anything, and I just go, that's I try to stop as far as saying that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but it's kind of one of the, like, the idea that, especially, like, we're a small 7-8 person kind of operation, the idea that we have anything better to do over the course of the 8 hours we're working together other than to talk about the shit that's going on at work is just...
Well, I feel companies start saying that when they know they're fucking up and they know they need to make changes, but rather than actually look at themselves and make those changes, it's like, let's just make it a policy that employees can't talk about it. Oh, it's now a fireable offense, and we'll just hire someone even cheaper. And
it's usually about wages. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Right?
Wages,
like, oh, I can't talk about wages. Well, why is that? Well, because he makes $3 less and we don't want him to find out. Oh, well, wait, what? So it's not in none of our best interest. It's just the company's best interest for him to not know that you've now hired someone, he's been here for 10 years. You've now hired someone who's making more than he has less credentials, works less.
Yeah.
And you're right. And you're expecting him to, and then and you're getting mad at him for saying something about, like, wait a minute. Like, yeah. And it becomes a real, again, problem where you're just trying to do what's best for you and the company and trying to find this balance between, and you're being told that what you're doing wasn't, let alone that what you had been doing that was good enough this year is now, the goalpost has now moved to here, and you don't have to do more to accomplish wait a minute, which, fine, if there was a commensurate raise.
Yeah.
As soon as I do that, right? Like, if I had certain goals that at the end of the year, you're going to give me this, all right, cool. Right? Now we're working towards something. Now we're building.
Yeah.
Right? But, when it's a problem of, like, inflation is what, 8, 10, 40, 45% right now?
Yeah, probably. It's outrageous.
And that is a year per year growth problem, where now next year I now have to pay 45% more for everything and you're not going to pay me 1% of that to make up. And I get that your stuff costs more.
But the company's really struggling, and so you should really just suck it up and work harder, because we're struggling too. Everyone gets a fucking bonus. Ignore these record profits. It's not what you think it is.
When during the pandemic, the richest people in the world made, record amount of profit, and everybody underneath them get lost and flooded.
Well, it was the biggest wealth transfer in history.
Yeah, and no one gets to say anything about that. It all
went upwards, and there's been nothing coming back down.
Yeah,
and
now we're
all being shat on and told it's our fault. Actually, if only we were just stronger, if we were just harder working, if we could just all pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. Get that 5th job.
Yeah,
it's your fault you're being so fucking lazy. You know what? It's because you sleep too much.
Robert Reich actually just put out a little thing on just how, right, like, Elon Musk got a $250,000 loan, right? Bill Gates started with this loan, right? Like, all these people had these.
Oh yeah, the ones that say they're self-made.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about self-made billionaires.
Still had a much bigger leg up than most of us.
Who came from a family who gave them this opportunity that none of us would have had. There's no way I can get a $250,000 loan for shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and rightly so.
Hey, hey, I mean, I'd put it into sock puppets. So, I mean, fair enough. I would just reinvest it back into sock puppets. Everybody knows it's a bad investment. I would still load right in there, right? Start my own NFT. It'll be...
It's a sound investment.
Exactly.
Your opportunity is to get in on the ground level right
exactly.
now.
I'll have puppet coin. It's taken, so you can't use it. It's mine. You cannot start puppet coin because I have already trademarked that as of now. So, I mean, if the dog coin can be something, then puppet coin can too. So, wait, what were we talking about?
I know, we got a little off track there. Anytime you get him going on his puppets.
Well, let alone a loan for $250,000 for puppets. Oh, what I could do. Oh, the puppets I would make.
Well, it was the idea of, the whole being told you need to pull yourself up and work harder. And it's like, and again, I'm not shitting on people that actually do work hard and have earned everything they have. Like, I have nothing but, respect for you and admiration. Because it's fantastic and it does require hard work, even if you had a leg up and you did have opportunities that the rest of us didn't. I'm not arguing the fact that you didn't work hard for it. But it's being told everyone else just needs to keep doing this, and also with no break. Because that's the thing when you have these opportunities and connections and things like this, it's like, okay, yes, you are hardworking, but you also arguably give yourself a little bit of recovery time.
Well, this is my thing. Like, you work really hard, but if you can take 2 weeks to go off to the Mediterranean and float around on a boat for 2 weeks, I don't have that opportunity. I mean, I don't have a private whatever that I can go off to and get away from all of it for 2 weeks and not have to deal with. I don't get that, right? We just have to keep working.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes this like, well, why aren't you just doing that? Well, because we don't have the same opportunities to get out of that you do.
Yeah.
We have to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Which becomes an issue of like, so now it's the burnout. Now it's 1 hour lack of sleep. And guess what? Now I'm a sociopath. And now you want me to care about your bullshit? You fucking billionaire? Like, fuck this noise, right? Like, why would I give two shits? I've had at least 2 hours lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But the sad thing is what's happening is instead of us going, fuck you guys, I mean, most of us still do, we're going, fuck you to each other, to the other ones that are, fuck you. But we're all not getting enough sleep. We're all having this, and we need to take it out on someone. And the people up here are pointing the fingers at all the little guys, and we're so fucking short fused now that we're accepting it and going, well, this is too big of a target to take it out on. The ones up how am I going to get to fucking Bill Gates? Like, I'd like to yell at him, but when am I ever going to see him, right? This guy, I can yell at him right now. The cause for all my problems.
You can get on social media, send all sorts of mean comments, right? Yeah.
And it's much easier, I think, to blame someone that you at least have that small bit of empathy still with, which is your fellow, man in your similar situation. It's probably so much easier to just project all of your shit onto him or her.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm big on, when you have something going on, I really like the idea of venting, right? Being able to just kind of get it out of your system, trying to find a not negative way of shitting on people, but try to find a space where you can just kind of get some of this shit out of you, deal with these negative emotions that sit inside of you. Because otherwise, for me especially, it just churns inside of me.
Yeah.
And I just get this constant churn of just crap bubbling up through my head all the time that I just don't get a chance to actually just go, ah! Right? And just get it out sometimes, before it just overwhelms you. And right, like you're sitting there having this churn, someone says something to you and it's, because you're stuck in that mode, and the more you do, the more it reinforces it and the harder it is to get out of, and it becomes this loop, and now you're stuck in this negativity.
Yeah. Well, we just recently did an episode, hopefully you've all watched it, about how, negativity bias and how insults and negative comments stick that much more with you in your brain.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what, where we've landed to. So now if the lack of sleep is causing a lack of empathy, which is causing now an increase in negative comments, and you can see where the cycle just keeps going.
And so now, when you have to try to find some empathy for others and no one else is showing any empathy, why would you show empathy for? And so it's this, it reinforcing these unfortunate circumstances of, if and makes it tougher to be able to. And so, yeah, I mean, and this is the problem. I understand. And that's the worst part. Like, I understand why this is happening, and that does not make it better.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, how can we have this evidence and yet we're somehow still not using it to make better choices?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. And that I think goes to kind of, human nature in a lot of ways, is that, for me, I have to be presented with that evidence a few times before brain goes, yeah, okay, maybe. Right?
Yeah.
Or at least I try to hold that in my head. There's a lot of times where I'm just like, yeah, okay, sure. Right? Because I think that just, in terms of, brain cycle management, that just makes it easier. Sometimes your brain just has to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to question that. Because it would take a lot of cycles and I just don't have the time to put it into. Right? And so we'll just accept some things. Right? But that becomes an issue now when you're again trying to move past those things. Once the other information is presented to you, the actual truth of the matter, right? Well, now we have to be able to disengage those things, move in, and just do a different mode, right?
Yeah.
Which hopefully is where we're moving this towards with this little podcast thing that we do, right? Trying to find that middle ground, trying to find how do we meet in the middle to move towards better means for everybody.
Well, and especially if we have to work within this framework that we've been given, like we can discuss all of these things that yes, we all need more sleep, we need to be kinder, but we all also need to work because we live in a world where you need to make money and you need to put a roof over your head, and right, so you're kind of stuck within this framework and you're sitting there going, yeah, okay, I know I need more downtime, I know I need to take care of myself, but I can't. Like, I actually need to get another job because inflation's gone up.
Yeah.
Right, so how do we work within this? And it's obviously needs to change, has to come from somewhere. The ones up here are definitely not going to do it for you because they're the only ones benefiting from it. So, how do you go about it? And it's a tough thing because no one wants to risk the protesting or uprising or anything like that would put your little tiny livelihood that you have now in jeopardy, right?
Yeah.
The whole, no one shows up to work for a day, right? Which would have a huge impact, but nobody's willing to actually do it because...
Well, not if I can't pay for food tomorrow.
Well, exactly, right? So...
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a kind of sideways tangent,
but it's relevant too, right? I mean, that's kind of I think a lot of the issue here too is it becomes that problem of, well, I just don't have time, I don't have energy.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to make these changes if if you're working 3 jobs and I don't even get to have 6 hours of uninterrupted time at night, let alone 8.
Yeah.
Right? To be able to actually even have that time set aside for sleep.
Yeah.
Right? If the only time you get is let alone like I've been moving into film stuff, which makes, scheduling is just almost impossible. I was supposed to be on set today. Luckily they canceled, so we got to be here with you people. But otherwise I would have been there for another 12 hours today on top of the 12, on top of the other 12, on top of the other, right? So, again, in that situation, like I get there's times where you just can't. And so now that question becomes, now that we are aware that your empathy center gets shut off, how do we find a workaround for that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, like, is there, is caffeine the answer, right? Like, if you just need to push yourself out, just activate that center somehow, right? Like how, is there meditation that you can do to, activate that empathy center to work around those things, right? Like, these are the kind of questions that we can hopefully start
and
to
we have no idea. We're
answer.
not giving any sort of...
Well, that's here in the land of no easy answers. We're just here to churn up the questions.
Is there a way to turn it back on? I mean, arguably it would be just get some more fucking sleep. But if that's not an option,
that's the thing, right? So this is where, now that we're aware that that's the problem, like if you're working retail job and you need to have that some level of empathy to work your 16-hour shift today, right? They'll
probably come out with a pill for it soon
enough. Which, yeah, probably won't make it better.
No. But that seems to be the only way. Oh, okay, well, we need to somehow rectify this problem, but we don't want them working less. No, they need to keep being more productive. Well, just give them a pill. That's fine.
Well, and now that we're aware, we're also going to hopefully be able to follow it down the line, right? To see what, years and years of that lack of sleep would do. Like,
I argue we're seeing it now.
Well, that's exactly so does that cause your empathy centers to atrophy? Does having that
Can you
lack
go
of
back?
sleep make that harder to feel that level of empathy in the future? Right? These are the kind of questions that we, hopefully can start to look at now and see whether, like, are we causing long-term damage to our empathy centers by having it shut down with a lack of sleep?
Yeah.
See, these are the questions that we bring to you. It's not just this, it's not just, we go further than the article. We bring you questions that you hadn't even considered. And that could be part of where this has been leading. Has it been 2 years of lack of sleep that have led us to this point where it just feels like nobody has any empathy anymore?
Yeah.
Because our brain centers that allow us to feel empathy have actually atrophied to the point where it becomes more difficult to just, I have to get some exercise. I have to pump that part of my brain up.
Yeah.
Find some mental exercises to just put myself, like,
well, I feel like
is it
also...
a matter of going to improv for a while and like having that, okay, so now you're a cow. Oh, okay, moo. Right? And just really feel what it's like to be a cow, right? Yeah.
I feel like we really compound the effect as well, because in our downtime, what's the first thing many of us do? Right? It's grab
Go
your...
party!
That's what I do, but I was going to say grab your phone, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime you have a second to yourself, it's usually you're on your phone, you start, and then what happens in that world? Well, now you're getting all the trigger effects, all the buzzwords, the negativity, the insults, the name calling, as we mentioned earlier, and check out our past episode on this exact topic. That is now adding to the negativity bias that's already there and probably further eroding your sense of empathy. So we're really just adding fuel to the fire. It's already a problem and we make it so much worse. Right? But it's those, precious moments you have to yourself to finally just, okay, quiet. I mean, heaven forbid you sit alone with yourself. That would be just terrible.
I don't know. Have you met myself?
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it's like for everybody else that has to deal with me on a regular basis. I mean, I know what it's like being inside here, and whew.
I'm not here voluntarily, guys.
I do lock the door when you come in, so yeah, it is a closed studio for a reason.
We'll get the comments. Be like, come to think of it, I've never seen Kristen out in the world.
Yeah. I do at least let you change your outfit in between episodes. I mean,
thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's where we can hopefully find the answer in the land of no easy. Just empathy is one of those things that we really have to be aware of. And that lack of empathy is something that we also have to be really aware of. If you're feeling someone is coming at you with that lack of empathy, I hope that we can find it in ourselves to respond with empathy. And it's tough, but I also feel like, like building that sandcastle, it's worth it in the end, right? Like having that moment of just, I built something, I feel is something that we're also kind of missing in this world. We're so used to just watching our accomplishments flash by us that we're not actually being aware of our growth on a daily basis. And I think a lot of us really do have to really take more of a stock in, right? Like, our empathy may be going down, but the times that we are able to rise it, bring it up to, those are the times that we should celebrate.
Well, I think we need to value it more to start with, because I think that we've actually, in addition to having it eroded, we've devalued empathy a lot.
Absolutely.
And a lot of this goes to, so much of it is just our outward appearance. So we have the illusion of empathy, right? Which is very important, you see, like, oh, I've changed my Facebook profile picture to include this. That's virtue signaling empathy, and that's basically what we've come down to. But genuine empathy for another human being, which is hard, which doesn't necessarily get recognition. Often it doesn't get any recognition, right? We've devalued anything that isn't instant gratification for us. So having empathy for that person that's literally just having a shit day and there is nothing in it for you, we see far fewer, instances of that. And if this can be tied back into the whole lack of sleep thing, then I understand why. But, again, bring that value up. You know, it's not about, I don't freaking care if you've posted about that act of kindness you did today. You've already now negated that act of kindness that you did by the very fact that you had to record it and tell everyone about it.
Yeah, I always tried to be a part-time ninja with ever, when I like to kind of be that person that, I wait for them to turn their back and I just do the eat, right? And then they turn back and go, oh, it's all fixed now. Okay, cool. Right? Like,
I was like, where are you going to?
Right?
You're just assaulting people?
I like to be able to fix things in the background, right?
Okay.
Like where like I'm pretty good at seeing problems that sometimes people may not notice, and I'm pretty good at being able to just wait for the time of right. Okay, good. All right, yeah, good. And then wait for them to come back and be like, oh, okay, I must have fixed that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just let them have that, right? That moment of like, okay, thank goodness it's working now, right?
Well, that's it. Like, can you just let someone else feel good without it being about you?
Right? Oh no, I immediately mentioned, okay, no, you thought that was you, that was me.
It's all me.
I wait for them to have that moment.
Also, that's not free, so here's your bill.
Exactly. Wait for them to have that moment and then take it away.
Oh God.
Which I think is also part of human nature too.
I think
right?
you need to get more sleep. You're clearly a sociopath.
I let them have the moment in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that worth?
I didn't have to do that.
Exactly, right? I could have just been right. But
yeah, I do feel the more we erode our empathy, the more our egos seem to build. And that's where we're living right now, is a very egotistical, right? It's just more room for it to take over. It's like, oh, great, that empathy center is packing out of the brain. Oh, empty space. I'm moving in, right? Or more likely squatting, because you know how hard it is to get rid of squatters? Once they're there, that's it.
Once they're in your brain, man, right? It's a somewhat closed environment.
But I mean, and that's what the ego is very good at doing, is convincing you that you're not a problem, that you're actually this wonderful human being. And if it's taking over your empathy centers, then that's what we're seeing, egotistical acts of kindness, which is kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? Is there such thing? Still nice.
But I mean, there's
things,
a certain
be
measure of like, is there actual true altruism, right? Like,
I mean, you're always going to feel good about it,
exactly,
right? Like,
right?
But it's that whole having to outwardly show it, for other people.
Yeah.
Do it for yourself. Get that little nice, warm and fuzzy feeling, and pat yourself on the back. Absolutely, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if it's not, that's not enough for you. It needs to be. Oh, everyone needs to acknowledge it.
Well, that's something that we need to address, right? Like, there's a reason why you feel that. If it was because you, as a child, you didn't get any kind of recognition, and so you're seeking it out now as an adult, that's something to be looked at, right? Like, and there's healthy ways of getting that, reinforcement, right? Yeah. But again, it comes to being aware of, right? Like, if you're not aware of why you're doing this thing, right? Like, why am I constantly seeking that kind of attention? Why? Is it just because I'm awesome and everybody needs to know it? Of course
Naturally.
It is. Of course it is, right? But is there also underlying things that happen, say, in your childhood that are, that you're not aware of, but are sitting crystallized inside the back of your brain that now drive these biases when these situations come at you?
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunately where a lot of us are, is just, because therapy is frowned upon in so many societal circles, right? It becomes difficult to actually have that meaningful conversation about the traumas that we have had that might actually mean why I am this way.
Yeah.
It's not just that I'm being an asshole, but that I was treated this way in the past, which made me react as if the only way that I had any control over this situation was to be that asshole.
Yeah.
Well,
it's hard for us to even, piece these things together.
Oh, yeah.
Because often we just exist. We just, kind of, I'm the way I am because I am.
Yeah.
Right. And it's once you really get in there, I mean, sometimes it's not even helpful to really pick it apart, to be totally honest. Is it?
There's a thumbnail for the episode.
Perfect. Yeah.
Get right into that brain there. Just get. Yeah. Yeah,
and we've lost everyone.
I thought that would be the point where we would get it. Oh yeah, where they pulled his brain open. That was awesome, right? Yeah. But that's, I think a lot of it is pulling the brain apart, right? Like having it's actually getting that look inside of it and going, oh, that's where you are.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you said, we're just not aware of some of these driving factors inside of us that, make you in a lot of ways who you are, for better or worse, and sometimes those things deserve to be changed, and sometimes those things deserve to be pushed up to the forefront and made a spectacle of.
Yeah.
And sometimes they need to be pushed off to the wayside, never to be talked about again. Like this episode. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Perfect sum up.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy.
I mean, like everything we do, there is no easy answers.
No, empathy. The
Empathy's
easy answer is
answer.
empathy.
Sleep, empathy.
Yeah.
That's all.
Get more sleep so you can have more empathy.
Everyone go take a nap.
But
not before you hit subscribe.
And like, and make a few comments. Nice ones.
It hurts us when you...
It really does. And I have such thin skin.
Constructive criticism, always welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But absolutely, let us know what you think. And yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate every second that you've been here, and look forward to having more seconds.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Have a great one.